Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network. And we have 2 episodes left of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. I am here along with my co-host Mark Iacobino. I am Darian Scalamoni. And we got 2 episodes left. This is the penultimate episode titled "We're Gonna Be in So Much Trouble." We've been enjoying this show thus far. We've been happy to discuss the show week to week. We had a lot of fun in last week's episode. Now we're getting to the nitty gritty. There's a lot to talk about with this episode, in particular with our boy Jod. This is an episode directed by Lee Isaac Chung, who also directed Twisters in 2024. He previously directed Minari before that. And I believe this is his first time doing anything in television or Star Wars. But we had a lot of expectations going into this episode, the final 2 episodes. I think I'm a little bit more disappointed, but I think it's more so because I wanted it to be longer, to see more, because when things started to really grip me towards the end of the episode, I was hoping for a little bit more. And this is one of the shorter, if not the shortest episode of the season, which we talked a little bit off screen through text message about why I'm bothered by that. I don't know if you feel similarly, but just give your broad thoughts on the episode. We're going to be in so much trouble.
Yeah. I actually really enjoyed this episode. It's one of my favorite of the series, possibly my favorite of the series so far. I think it offered a lot of good twists and turns, and it elevated some character deaths potentially, which was really cool. I think the visuals were great. We were talking off camera about the score. This was the first episode. I think the score was more of a character than in previous episodes. I think it was very much fanfare-esque in the other episodes, but this one, it felt like it was really elevating what we were seeing on screen. I think the theme for the Skeleton Crew is good. It's a nice Star Wars melody, but here we have the scene where Jod finds the credits, and it's like that menacing violin kind of going as it's falling all over him. And then when the kids are looking at their planet at Attan again for the first time, and the sun's beaming in and the music is swelling, I thought that was a great moment. And it's done by Mick Giacchino, is that his name?
Yeah.
Who is the son of
Michael
Giacchino, who did Rogue One and did some other film scores. So it was cool to see, kind of like a passing of the torch with composers. I think my main gripe with it is probably what we've been talking about the whole season with conveniences and certain critical points. But I agree. It did feel, as most Disney Star Wars episodes feel, they feel short for some reason. They just can't reach those 50-minute episodes that HBO or Hulu do with ease.
Yeah. The thing that worries me about it just a tad, even though I am still really enjoying the show, is the fact that it worries me about the layers in terms of the depth of shows like this. And this isn't a show necessarily where, like you talked, it's a show filled with conveniences. It's a show that pretty much lays it all out there for you for what it is. Again, this is a series that's following a group of children for the most part, so it's going to be paid by numbers at points. This is an episode where you get something really dark and then they pull away, right when they have you in your hand. And I'm like, I want to see where we're going to go with this. I don't like that we're cutting it off as soon as he lets the lightsaber out. I need to see more with him. I need to see more with the kids, because we get a full-fledged heel turn, if you don't know those terms.
Oh, yeah.
Full angry, evil, shitty Jod.
Yes.
And it's tough to watch. It's hard. You're seeing he's being shitty to children, and that's not always great to watch when you're watching. But again, Jude Law, I think, is doing justice to a character in Star Wars for the first time in a long time. I haven't really connected with a character in a way or reacted to a character in such a way probably since Din in probably Mandalorian season 2, because I wasn't a huge fan of Mandalorian season 3. But there's something with this, and my only gripe with where we're going with him, which I brought up previously, and I think you said you feel a little bit differently. I don't know if you feel the same way now, because we only have 1 episode left. I need a little bit more backstory with him. I need to understand how he's able, because it's not the sort of thing where when he has these, unless he really is that much of a master manipulator, those conversations he had with Wim, that's real. That's real. It feels very real. Same thing with his conversation with KB. It feels like he has care for these kids, and then he just completely turns, completely Like, I'm sick of hearing you talk. Like,
Yeah.
shut up. Like, shut up.
Mhm.
Like, nothing about you matters. Like, stop talking. Get me to the mint. And it's like, oh my God, dude. Like, he's eviscerating these kids.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
I appreciate that they've committed to the turn. I think we were both pretty hesitant at the beginning of the series that it would be too easy of a heart of gold scoundrel story where he turns quickly, he loves the kids, he becomes a father figure, and he gets them home safe, and he never really embraces that scoundrel piece of himself. But in this show, yeah, he is fully there, and he's done at least worse things than what we would expect from him, especially because he does have the Force, and we've seen him use it multiple times now. And I agree, we should definitely get something more from him from a backstory perspective, because he does have the Force. It's not just a scoundrel that we can just say, yeah, we understand he probably had a troubled past. Like, no, the Force is a big deal in Star Wars. We can't just kind of drop it into a character and not really understand how he learned to use the Force, how he's kind of gotten by in life, and what was that traumatic moment that happened to him to lead him on this path where he's, committing cold-blooded murder, going against children and then threatening children's parents in front of them, and just being the most selfish character we've seen in some time. So I agree, it's a lot to fit in this last episode, and fingers crossed.
Like, they could do a longer episode. Like, we've seen them do that.
They could, and they should be doing that.
That's still a lot
yeah.
to fit in because there's a lot of questions that we still have by the end of this. We know about the mint. We know how many vaults there are. Just crazy. I don't know if you caught the Easter egg too, but they do. They say there's 1,139 vaults, and I think that's a tribute to George Lucas's THX 1138, which is cool. A little fun nod, and I love when they do stuff like that in Star Wars. But we see that he's gotten to the mint. He's there by himself. He's not able to contact his ship. Also interesting, more stuff with the droids, seeing that they're just kind of letting him run through and do whatever. They're trusting in the fact that even though he's dressed like a pirate and there's nothing that he's doing that would indicate that he is of higher status, that they're not smart enough to read on that. So I think that's interesting as well. But we need to understand more about Rened. Maybe we don't, but I think it's important. We need to have the background of who his captain was. We still don't have any indication of who that is. We have no idea where Jod came from. And we did get, obviously, we returned to the stuff with the parents, but that also felt very quick and very rushed. So my biggest gripe with the show thus far is definitely the parents and Kerry Condon being wasted.
Absolutely.
Because I don't understand why you cast an Oscar-nominated actress to do this part that basically has no substance. Like, there's nothing to her character that feels valuable unless we are going to get something in the end, which is still possible. Crazy
to blow budget on that for like maybe one episode.
Seriously.
Like big moment. It's a lot to do. Yeah.
And I still think we have one episode left. I don't want this to be a whole entire theory bait episode. The only way for me where I think it can be a bit forgivable depending on how quickly we get to the end of this, and this is possible. I don't want to put a lot of onus on Lucasfilm to call them smart, because they're not all the time. If they secretly turn around and go, we have a second season filmed, and we're putting it out later this year, that I would feel more comfortable with. Also because the show took 4 years to come on the air, and it doesn't seem like it should have.
That's a fair point.
So if that happens, and then we start to get a little bit more going into where I don't want to say it leaves it open-ended, but it's something in which maybe we see something happen, and then we even get, which Star Wars doesn't do a lot of, but I'd like a short post-credit scene. Doesn't need to be anything major, but leading us into the same way we got like with early on. I mean, the show wasn't great, but the Book of Boba Fett was the Book of Boba Fett or Mandalorian when he's sitting on the throne.
That was probably Mandalorian to like set up the Book of Boba Fett.
That was at least something where you're like, oh, cool. Okay, they're gonna go in this direction. They need that. They need that to build off the momentum of where they're going to end up. We still have another episode left. We don't know where they're going to end up. Based on what else happens in this episode, how do you feel where we're at with the children? Because we're now at a place where they're obviously fearing for their life. They're seeing things they've never seen for the first time, and they're being exposed to these things that they're not supposed to be exposed to until they graduate. Which there's a lot of explaining that's going to have to be done now at this point as well.
Yeah, I think I agree. I do think they've done a good job of answering a lot of questions and then also still leaving some questions that I think can be answered in this last episode. I really like the idea that the ship is the key. The ship is how you get in and out to the planet. I like that we understand, how it's been hidden with these, this type of force field like storm around the planet that destroys ships if they don't have the access codes. I like all that. I think it brings up those questions of like, who is this commissioner? Is it still a robot? Because we hear its voice and it says, emissary ship is coming in, cleared to entry. And we still don't know who's approving that. If it is I know you theorized it was the captain, and that's how he's kind of just manipulating the whole planet. Or if it is this, kind of hive mind droid that's kind of calling the shots, and it's just like, oh, that's our ship. All right, let it through. So I think those are all things that could be wrapped up pretty quickly at the end. But yeah, I think, we have set up Jod and the parents and the kids are all in one spot now. So like we can jump right into the next week's episode. It's just a question of, is there another player that's going to jump in at this point to stop Jod from doing what he's going to do? Or is this the moment where Jod does kind of reveal his true nature, or his past, because he's in a situation that maybe he loses control of or something like that? Because clearly, like, I don't see the pirate ship coming in, like him calling the crew, him coming in and him taking over the whole planet. Like that doesn't seem possible. But yeah, no, as we talked about last week, these Star Wars shows sometimes feel like movies that were stretched out to 8 episodes when they could compress all of this into like a tight story.
Yeah.
And, it makes us have these episodes where there's just kind of like a cut. Like it's just an end where it's like, we needed that next part.
So you still are on the side of that you think this could have and should have been a movie rather than a series?
I do. I think this could have been a tight 2.5 hour movie, because all Star Wars movies are 220, 230, so I think this could have been cut down for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And in terms of, I think especially with the pacing of it, I think it easily could have been a movie. I said on last week's episode, the unfortunate reality is that when you have no previous Skywalker relation, or you don't have big names attached to it, with Jude Law being your biggest character and being an antagonist, I would be surprised if they ever did anything like that. Things can obviously change. There's rumors now that they might do a Knights of the Old Republic movie. So again, it's another week, another movie. So who knows? But yeah, I'm more so. I think my biggest thing is I came out of this episode with so many more questions, and I just feel like we don't have enough time to wrap it up.
Right.
And that's where I worry about the completion part of it, where I just, like I said, the only way it will be forgivable to me is if they're able to turn around and be like, give this a quick green light. And we are already, because even if, like, let's say they give it a green light again, you have kids that are aging up, which is always a problem. You know what I mean? Then you have Jude Law, who has a very busy schedule. But I don't know. I'm excited to see where they go in the finale. You're right. We have everybody in one place at this point. We still haven't seen really Jod or Silvo, or whatever you want to call him, Crimson Jack, interact with the parents, essentially. There could be something of substance with him and Carrie that we haven't seen yet, which could be interesting. So kind of interested to see what happens there.
Right.
We still have Kelly MacDonald over here, who's an actress of name recognition. Who knows if she's ever going to come back into the series? Who knows? But for me, I think that I was really enjoying, again, I think Jude Law is the MVP of the show. I think that we lose a bit of the kids in this episode, where so much, and the whole show's been revolving around the kids, but we get the banter in the beginning, which I think is fun. Again, just kind of reminding us of that they're kids, where Wim is like, I still have to take assessment. Like, it's like where the whole like crux of how the story jumps off. That he's still thinking about that. Meanwhile, they're like globetrotting around the galaxy, which I think is fun. And we need a big moment with the kids. Do you think that that's something that we can look forward to next week, or where are you leaning with the kids? What do you think could happen, whether it's with the relationship of them or something that's going to happen with them and Jod, or them and their parents?
Yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from. I do think the kids had a good episode this week. I feel the Wim portion was a nice flip of the typical Star Wars story, where it's like the kid leaves his planet and never returns to it, only returns to it in like tragedy. Anakin comes back home and his mother's dead. But here it's the kids leave the planet and then they come back and they don't, the adventure's over. Like they didn't actually leave the planet. They just kind of had a little vacation in the Star Wars galaxy, and now they're going back to reality. So I actually like how that kind of grounded the kids. Like, oh yeah, that was just kind of like a one-off thing, and we're gonna go back to just being data analysts. I thought that was good, and I enjoyed the scene where the kids saw the projection of their parents talking to them as like Jod's kind of circling it like a shark, like examining it, and they're kind of hearing this perspective from their parents. And there's that nice little line where Neil's mom is like, "Oh, your brother just lost his tooth, and his wish was to see his big brother again." And I was like, that's really sweet. So I think the kids actually had a solid episode, but I understand what you're saying, because there's so much bigger things going on with, Jod killing SM. I mean, SM's been put together like a million times, so he's likely not fully dead. But Jod does that. He kills Brutus, the wolf guy, which was pretty brutal. Brutus, and then the parents kind of open the episode. So I do understand what you're saying with the kids kind of getting lost in the shuffle. I think, next week the kids have to kind of take control of the show, because like you said, there was a connection to some degree with Jod and the kids, whether he wanted to admit it or not, or it was a full manipulation. So they have to be the ones that get through to him in some way, or they're just gonna say, "Screw it, Jude Law, you're a total bad guy.
Kills him.
You're dying."
It goes to Anakin, episode 3.
Yeah, he's just go. No, not Jod killing the kid. Oh my God, no.
That'd be dark.
That would be absolutely insane. No, Jod dying and it being like his. He dies as the bad guy, and that's just what it is. There is no redemption for him. That doesn't feel like a Star Wars story. Redemption's a huge piece of Star Wars, so I think they're going to be the key to turning him to some degree.
Yeah. In terms of getting more information in the larger scheme of whether it's Star Wars lore or something within this story and where it could lead, was there anything in this episode that you felt was, I don't want to say groundbreaking, but something that's informative going forward for the world of Star Wars? Because we discussed that a lot in last week's episode, and all the potential things that this could lead to. And we get to the mint and we see it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've seen anything like that in Star Wars.
No.
So like we're getting this indication of this underground mint that exists completely beneath the surface of this planet, that some believe is a myth, some believe it's real. So it's different, obviously, for Star Wars. But is there anything that sticks out to you where you were like, "Oh, that's interesting. Maybe that could lead here," or something that indicated something else?
I can go real inside.
Let's go nerdy.
I can go real.
I want to go nerdy.
Okay, so the banking clan from the prequels, the Munes. We have that one-off line when they're at the spa where they're like, "Oh, the Munes are here from like a conference or whatever." Munes are the banking clan from the prequel, so they're money people. Like that's their whole, their race is all in banking. So I think it's interesting that they kind of gave that little line. I think that could potentially come back around. The satellites that are destroying the ships as they come in, we see them. They're kind of like these jellyfish-looking things. They're very reminiscent of the satellites used in Operation Cinder, which is right after the Empire falls. Essentially, the Emperor had a contingency plan where he uses these satellites to like glass entire planets. Like I forget why exactly he was glassing certain planets, but it looks like the same exact satellite. So again, that leads me to believe that this mint isn't funding the New Republic. It's funding potentially the Imperial Remnant or the First Order, the fledgling First Order. So that kind of led me in that direction. And then the Munes and the banking clan, I thought that was interesting. And they were in league with the Separatists. So they're like a shady people. They kind of go where the power is. So they could also kind of be pushed into this story. So I think both of those things were kind of like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know. Again, this seems like a very small, isolated story. So I don't know if they'll go broad with it like that. But those were things that I was kind of like, okay, we might be kind of leading to something bigger.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, even regardless of, and I do agree with you, I think it's going to be a more contained story than what we're accustomed to seeing with Star Wars. But the reality is, with Star Wars, with Marvel, with DC, all these bigger properties, it has to obviously be an answer. Excuse me. I was going to sneeze. I didn't. It has to lead to... Here.
There we go.
Excuse me. Excuse me, everyone. cut that out. But it has to lead to an answer to something, right? It has to bring us somewhere. It needs to explain something a little bit further. Do you think that there is something that is going to be, I know I said this earlier, but there was still that rumor for a long time that it could potentially connect to something within the world of the Mandalorian, right?
Yeah.
If that is the case, obviously he's dealing with pirates, he's dealing with outlaws, all these things. Is there a connection to certain character? Like, we know Cad Bane is still alive, right? Like, we get, like, is there...
No, this might be after Boba Fett kills him in Book of Boba Fett.
Okay.
So he's probably dead. Hondo, again, is
But
always
don't we get a post-credit scene or a scene where he's still breathing?
No,
Cad
that was
Bane?
like a fan theory where it was like the camera panned over him while he was dead, and it was like, oh, his buttons are still kind of like twitch. Yeah, I think he's dead. He was an old alien anyway. Okay. I think Hondo's always an easy answer when it comes to pirates. He's recognizable with, you know, anyone that even hasn't seen the animated stuff. You've gone to Galaxy's Edge. You've seen him in Smuggler's Run. So I think Hondo's always an easy answer to a connection to something bigger. And I always invite the idea of seeing Hondo on screen, but probably very difficult to pull off, especially because his voice is so iconic, and I don't think his voice actor would play him in live action, like Lars did with Thawne. Yeah. So
I think we're getting a season 2 of this show. The more I'm sitting with it, I just feel like there has to be more to what we're going to end up with, because I can't see them killing off Jod.
Right. Yeah.
I'd be very surprised. And not to say that I can't see him being redeemed, but to me, a full redemption with where we're at currently would be very hard to pull off. Not to say John Watts can't pull it off, but I think it would be hard. And he's done something similar. You've seen Spider-Man Homecoming. Mm-hmm. We see something similar with Vulture. We see like, and I'm just saying that because it's another project that he's directed, but it's something where you can see that happening. But that's over like a course of a 2-hour movie. Like, we need to squeeze a lot in, let's say the episode is 50 minutes. That's even, I think that might even be long. Like, I don't know if they're going to be able to do all that.
It just feels like it's this product of the way Disney makes stuff that they can't simply greenlight something for a limited run. Or, I mean, not even just Disney. I mean, anyone, like, they'll say limited series and then they always want it open-ended to lead to something else, which is unfortunate because that's not, you know, how you should create a story. You shouldn't create a story like, I could tell a story, but I could also kind of like leave stuff off it so it doesn't feel complete so we can continue it. Like, that feels
I wish it was something like Andor where they were like, no, we're doing this as a 2-season show.
That's how everything should be. Better Call Saul, you know, Breaking Bad, they're like, I know exactly where this is ending. We're going to get there, and that's it.
Just trust in us.
Yeah.
Of course, if you plan to make something 2 seasons or 3 seasons and the first season bombs, then cancel the show. Sure. I get it. I mean, I understand that. The Acolyte, obviously they had a plan going forward, and we're never going to see what happened with it because it wasn't successful. The effects, the visual effects in this episode, I thought were really great. A lot of the galaxy sequences I thought were really pretty to look at. We do get I thought this was smart. We talked a couple weeks ago about Jod's interaction with the kelp farmer.
Yes.
That gives us a little bit of a feeling of care for this person, and then they kill him off. Which I thought was really, really good. At least a little bit of deeper storytelling within Star Wars in this world. Yeah.
There's a lot of small moments in this episode that I also appreciate that it just shows the creators and the actors are making choices, and it's, you know, it's important to them to tell a good story. Like when Wim and his dad see each other for the first time in the vault, they run up to each other and then they stop because they don't have that very what's the word?
Intimate connection.
They don't have they don't have that intimate father-son connection, so they kind of pause and then they embrace. And it's like, that's a choice. That's a good moment to learn more about both these characters. We know he's kind of like an absentee father. He's more focused on work, and Wim is kind of like, I don't want to be the first one to, you know,
initiate.
Exactly. And then there's another moment when they show up at At Attan and they see it's kind of like a storm planet, and he's like looking out and he's like, shit, I got to talk my way out of this because this doesn't look too good. And it's just like a little moment where Jude Law is kind of like, he rolls his eyes and then he kind of goes into this whole spiel where he's going to manipulate the crew. And again, it's like a blink if you miss it moment, but it's like, it feels good to see Star Wars have moments that are, typical and like good TV shows.
Yeah, even I think the humor in this show is better than a lot of humor we've gotten in Star Wars recently.
Big time.
There's a moment with Jod too after that. I forget I don't know if we even get the character's name, but the kelp farmer that dies, and we cut back to them on the ship, and Jod's just sitting there, and they all stare at him, and he goes, "Let's just set another one." And I'm like, "This is great! Like this is so perfect for his character."
Mhm.
I mean, I can't stop gushing over Jod, and that's another part of the reason why I think selfishly I don't want to see him die. Obviously, like I said, he makes you hate him though, which I think is great. It's something not to this extent. So if you know what I'm talking about, but it gives me that sense of like what they did with the Penguin this year, where there's a character that's like, and it's different because Jod is a very different character. He's not a complete antagonist throughout the entire series. Like he's not doing evil shit the entire time.
Yeah.
But Oz, they get you wrapped up in this character so much that you're kind of rooting for the guy, and you're like, oh, like he's helping this kid out. It is like Jod is this character where he's still done good things for these. He's saved the kids on multiple occasions, like throughout the show. And now he's like, I just want you to shut up. Like, I'm done with you. I hate you. Stop talking. You're all like pieces of shit. I'm like, oh my God, dude, like this is crazy. So, but I want to see more with this character, and I will feel robbed if we don't get a little bit more backstory, because like you said, we have enough of an indication now that he has the capabilities of using the Force. He knows how to wield a lightsaber. We know that now. We've seen that now. So there has to be something further. I don't know if we necessarily are going to get that in a finale because there's not enough time. So I'm very curious on what we're going to get with the finale. I think it's the most curious I've been for a Star Wars season finale in a while.
Well, that's good.
I'm excited to see what happens. Is there anything else that we might have missed out in this episode that you wanted to touch on?
No, I think I agree. I think I would be pretty shocked if they do kill Jod off, because Jude Law seems like a very big Star Wars fan and seems like someone who would sign on for multiple appearances in Star Wars. It doesn't seem like a paycheck to him. So I think, that's probably unlikely. But yeah, I definitely want to see a nice, redemption next week to some degree. It doesn't even have to be a full redemption, but just a connection between him and the kids. Like, it wasn't all for nothing. We did, have some sort of connection. And this is how I got to this point. And we'll see where it goes. Maybe Karen Condon will finally get
some
moment. But yeah, that's all I got.
John Watts is directing the finale. He is the patriarch of the show. He is the co-creator.
Bring it home, John.
Bring it home, John. This, as of our recording, is the highest rated episode of the series at 8.2.
Oh my God, I got my finger on the pulse.
You do. Episode 3, which was one of our favorites for a while, is the third highest rated. The second highest is the Spa Planet.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which is at an 8.1. But genuinely, right before we wrap things up, we're 7 weeks into the show. 6 weeks, I guess, technically, because we got a 2-episode premiere. How can you assess it? Through 7 weeks, how are you feeling about Skeleton Crew? Because we were very hesitant for a lot of reasons. This thing filmed in 2021. We're in 2025 now. Yeah. So how do you feel going into the finale?
I feel good. It feels good to see that new stories can be told competently with new characters under Disney, and that they can draw inspiration from other places other than just rehash old Star Wars stuff. And it hopefully teaches Disney a valuable lesson that I don't think they'll take the right way, but I hope that they see the positive reaction to it and say, okay, maybe if we hire the right people, like with Skeleton Crew and Andor, which ironically, like the two shows I was not looking forward to end up being the best Star Wars shows for the most part. Hopefully Disney's like, okay, maybe we shouldn't give shows to people that maybe don't deserve it or haven't earned like that much of a
trust.
budget. But I doubt Disney will learn that lesson.
Yeah. Well, I will say the one thing I brought up a couple weeks ago that I am enjoying the most is that very reminiscent of what they do in The Mandalorian and what Favreau had said in the beginning of the creation of that show. They are paying homage to other things that are not Star Wars and putting it in the world of Star Wars. And guess what? It works.
Crazy.
So keep doing it. Keep working with that framework. And if we do get a season 2, I'm assuming and hoping that John Watts and Christopher Ford are attached. The other thing, quickly, last thing.
Okay.
John Watts signed an overall deal with Disney a year and a half ago. Just remembered that. 100% we're getting a second season of the show. I'm saying it right now. I think that they had a plan in place. This was meant to be a multiple season thing. It might just be 2 seasons, who knows? But I think there's more to tell with the story, and I'm excited for the finale.
Cool.
So we got a lot.
Agreed.
We got a lot to talk about next week. But thank you guys for watching. Let us know in the comments what were your guys' thoughts on episode 7 of Star Wars: The Skeleton Crew. Are you guys? What did you guys think of Jod's heel turn? Completely turning against the kids. What are your guys' theories leading into the finale? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to have a conversation with you guys there. If you guys could also give this video a like and subscribe to us here at the Culture Wave Media Network. We got tons of other stuff. If you're also enjoying other things outside of the world of Star Wars, we're covering a lot of movies with award season, and we just have our review of Squid Game Season 2 up. We got a big 2025 plan for you guys as well. And I just want to give Mark an opportunity to shout out not only his podcast, but now his new YouTube channel.
Whoa. Yeah, so I run the Star Wars Mark of Balance podcast. Just started the YouTube channel yesterday to release all of my old archived episodes on there. So wherever you want to listen, whether it's streaming or on YouTube, you have that option now. And you can follow me on Instagram at @star_wars_Mark of Balance. So thanks.
Thank you for being here every week, Mark. And also, you guys can follow us on all our social media stuff. All that stuff is below me in the video currently. We're on Facebook, we're on Threads, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. We're everywhere. You guys can follow our stuff. So be sure to do that if you guys can as well. Just signing off, I am Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Mark Iacobino.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.